Okay, so we're back again, and in our agenda now is the resources folder. Okay, we're currently here. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit more. So there are two subfolders here, prompts and templates. In prompts, all of these are just strings that we import in the code, but I will actually take this chance to discuss some other VS Code shortcuts and tips. I'm explaining this file right here, and so we can go to Zen mode and see. But in text files like these, don't forget to toggle something called word wrap, like this. Control-Shift-P in VS Code and then toggle word wrap. This will make life easier by making the lines in the same line. Instead of me horizontally scrolling here, the text will go here, and then this will remain in line, as you see. So this is a line still, this line, okay? So this is something helpful. And so whenever I zoom in, that now, so for example, here, this will be a line 14 only. And if I keep zooming in, line 14 will have these 3 lines. Anyways, so this is a cool tip. Another cool tip that I'll say in a minute is regarding how to compare different files in VS Code. In a minute, I'll explain the difference between Aya, and we'll see the difference between Aya and Aya layman, okay? But upon inspection, you'll see them very similar. And so when you see any code or even text files like this, you can do here Control-Shift-P and then compare active file with, okay? You will say here this file that you want to compare the current file. I'm currently standing on system message Aya. So what I want to compare with, I want to compare with system message Aya layman. Okay, so I'll choose the second one. And so it automatically got me here, okay? And so this heat map is very useful because in this heat map at the right, that all of this code is unchanged or text is unchanged, but the part of the of change happens here in that red part. So what's red and green here? I know I'm explaining just basic stuff here, but maybe it will help. If you see the tabs here at the top, you will see a left and a right section. The left section is the file that let's say that it's a file that I want to compare against, okay? It's the initial file that I have, okay? It's the old file, if you say so. And the right side is the new file that I'm comparing against, okay? And so the old file, system message Aya, is the reference, is the main reference here. And so we're saying the old file, system message Aya, initially contained this paragraph, the person reading your Ansari, your answer is whatever, and then this got removed. That's what the red here means. These lines 29 to 34 got removed and replaced with these lines 29, 31, again similar line numbers, because in the old file, system message Aya, they were on lines 30 to 32, and in the new file, system message Aya layman, the new content is also in lines 29 to 31. So that's how you can read these line numbers here, okay? The minus is what got removed from the old file, and the plus is what got added from the new file in the right side, okay? And if you see here, if we remove this and go back to system message Aya, you'll see indeed these lines here, the person reading was whatever, in lines 30 and 32. And but if you go to system message Aya layman, you'll see that in lines 29 to 31, the lines changed. How did it change? Okay, so this is also a cool thing to see. Let me know not to confuse you. Turn back to Aya first and then compare active file with system message Aya layman. You see here in the red part, okay, in the red part, if it's just a normal red, not highlighted red, then this section generally got changed. How did it get changed exactly? In the highlighted red. So you'll see here a well-informed scholar, whatever. This was in the old one. And in the new answer, the green one, you'll see the person reading your answer is, this part is the same. That's why it's highlighted in just normal, in darker green, okay? So this is similar, but who may or may not be a Muslim, assume the reader is whatever, this is new, okay? This is new. And so you tell me, why did a general member of the public be in dark green? This is something with the diff algorithm. So you see here, this part, the person reading your answer, this is the same at the start of the old file. But a general member of the public, it is also in the old file, but at the end. A general member of the public. See this part? This is at the end of the sentence, and here this is at the start of the sentence. So this is I think is a cool thing, that we don't want to do exact differing between the files. No, we want to know what knowledge changed. And so this is what the internal algorithm of doing this differing matching is based off of. We want to know the knowledge and the general content that got changed, not exactly the order. And so that's why a general member of the public remains in dark green, even though in the old paragraph it's in the middle and then the new paragraph is in the start. Okay, so that's just something for you to, I think most of you know this, but I thought it's cool to explain nonetheless. And so back to the actual purpose of these files, and each one of them, instead of saying exactly what the purpose is, I will say how you can get to the purpose of the file if you need to do, because not all of the files here you need to understand when you start with the code base. A quick way again is a good old Ctrl+Shift+F. This file is called greeting, and so I will type here greeting. You will see here it's mentioned in Ansari self.greeting, okay, self.bind greeting. So here we're assigning the greeting message. So I know that this is a message. I know that this is a prompt, and even its type is prompt. So I know that this basically somehow, maybe wrapped in a class or whatever, eventually contains the string that is in the greeting.txt. So if I just see where this is used, it's used in greet function, which is used in here. So for example, main is.dio, we print the greeting. So we understand that this is the initial greeting message when we see the application in the, when we see Ansari in the stdio in the terminal. Okay, so this is the way that you can understand where these files are used. Let me see with you other examples. News is a tricky one. News comes up in the front end whenever something like major happens. For example, currently we're working on releasing Claude instead of OpenAI. Is it pronounced Claude? Cloud. Anyways, instead of OpenAI. And so when that happens, we'll probably write like a news headline, and this eventually gets sent to the front end, I believe. I myself don't know the logic. Let us check together. We'll do it live. If I search for news here, let me see what I can get. Okay, I get nothing. I get nothing in these files. Interesting. To be honest, I think I called the team leads in the project, and they told me that it's planned to be used, but it's currently not used. I think, like whenever there's a new change, we write it here, and then we write the code so that it updates and goes to the front end and sys, and then we don't use it back. So that's why the last edit was 19 months ago. So maybe I chose the wrong example here. Let me try with another one. The system message Aya and layman. If we at least do the search here, system message Aya, you'll see it here in the configuration, that to the Aya related variables here, prompt file name. And in file main API, you will see where it's used as a parameter in Ansari workflow, which makes sense because this actually, if you remember when I was recording the Ansari workflow, we wanted this to be specific to Ayas, and that's why we have a file describing the system in terms of Ayas explanations. Again, how did we, or the authors or whatever, did use how to write this? Like, why do we write it in this way? This is called prompt engineering. Okay. So there are quick crash courses you can see on prompt engineering, but yeah, just stating like what your role is, like who you are initially, what your role is, what your expertise are, and again we're stating that explicitly here. And obviously we can change, like we don't have to write here's how you work, like we can say here's how you operate, for example. This isn't something strict. We can be flexible here, but essentially the gist of each part of the paragraph has to be there. So there should be a part explaining how you work. You can phrase it differently, but this part should be there. Okay, and you should say any constraints, for example, and the audience that you're giving to. So here we're saying who your audience is, and this is technically the difference between the Aya and the Aya layman, is that here we're assuming the audience are informed scholars, and so we're giving concise responses. In the layman version, we're also giving concise responses, but it doesn't have to be like in depth and pre-assumes knowledge from the reader side of the Quran, etc. No, that's why we're saying the general member of the public, okay, who may not even be a Muslim. Okay, so that's the audience part. So the prompt should contain these just general, how do I say it, guidelines. Like there should be a part for the audience. Who is your audience? There should be a part of who you are, your character, your functionalities, your capabilities, your expertise. All of that. How do you know which guidelines? You should just make sure they are in the prompt. You can say a crash course about prompt engineering in that regard. So same thing with the Claude, or what we're experimenting with right now, message tools. And so these are the prompts, okay, passed through to the LLM to properly define it, to Ansari LLM. In the templates, I think I explained that before, the templates. When I was explaining the testing part, we said that this is Jinja, and we have here, this is Jinja templating. So when we're getting from the CSVs, we can fill the question and the options based on these dynamic parameters. okay? And the password reset is also something that we, for some reason, we sent this HTML back to the front end, but I don't know why this specific part we did in the back end, to be honest. Like, I'm not exactly sure. So this is for the resources part. Okay, and I can as well do utilizations, since this part isn't really that big. So tools, I explained it before. Resources, I explained it right now. And now with utils. So these are general utilities that just code that we can use across multiple Python files. So we decided to put them here. For example, the get extended origins. If we have, I decided to define it here just to abstract a little bit of the logic of which origins that we want to get. Okay, so for example, when testing locally, I think I changed this, by the way, in the middle of the recording. So part of the recording, you see this called debug mode, but now I changed it in a commit that I just made to testing locally because that's more transparent and clear. So when we're testing locally, we have the local origin and the zero origin and all of that. So I wanted to make that logic a little bit abstracted away from main, because just saying what's in GitHub Actions, what's not, and how to add origins, that's not really related to the job of main API.py, okay? So that's why I abstracted that away in this general helpers utility Python file and called that in main API, okay? In the add app middleware here. This is an example. Another example is validate cores. Validate cores, because we call it in more than one file, I decided to add that logic away, to move that logic away into the utility that can be used by multiple files, the main API file and the WhatsApp file. Again, defined in a separate file to avoid circular imports between main Python files. If I define it in, so for example, if I define it in main API.py and I define this function, I require this function in the main WhatsApp file. If you see here, main WhatsApp, I believe, yes, I require the validate cores. So to get the validate cores, if I had defined it in main API, I would have in the main WhatsApp file needed to import the main API file. But the main API file requires the WhatsApp file in order to include this router, if you remember that logic. So the WhatsApp file will call the main file to get the validate cores, and the main file will call the WhatsApp file to get the router, okay? But then when we're importing that, the main API will try to import WhatsApp, and so when WhatsApp is being imported, it will try to import main, and that's a circular importing, okay? So that's why I moved away the validate logic to be in here. The validate cores, I'm sorry. Validate cores to be in the general helpers Python file. So this is another example of a utility that should be placed in here. Check if mostly English. Yeah, so again, functions that even if it's used in only one place for now, functions that I think, or that you think, will be placed later in multiple places, or that they are general enough that they can be reused in multiple parts of the code, you can put them here as a utility, okay? So here, check if mostly English, this is just for me to determine a text incoming from the user or whatever is mostly in English language or not, and based on that I can decide the language to answer in. But I think I didn't fully implement this logic yet, but this is just an example. And so this function is general enough that maybe we can need it in other flows as well, in main API or Discord or whatever, or WhatsApp or whatever. So I put it in the general helpers here, okay? So that's another example. And get language from text, same thing. Get language direction from text. These are related to WhatsApp for now, while I'm recording. And they are not completely used till now, because I think this was for me, let me remember where I used that. Message direction is to get the message. Yeah, these were related to formatting the WhatsApp markdown, because I'm going into extra details here, because when the LLM returns a result, it's sometimes in markdown language. So in markdown you have, for example, how do I say it? The bold is in double asterisk and double asterisk. So you can say a specific word is in bold if it has a double asterisk sign in the left and the right. But in WhatsApp, I believe it translates a word to be bold if you have only one asterisk, okay? And the WhatsApp messaging doesn't really support the exact syntax of the normal markdown syntax, so we have to convert, okay? Convert conventional markdown syntax to WhatsApp markdown syntax. So these are very specific logics for now, these functions. And so again, my advice when reading code is that before you just dive deep into everything and understand everything in the Codebase, don't really aim to understand everything. See where the code is used. So here you saw that and control clicked and you saw that's only used in this part in the WhatsApp markdown file. Maybe you're currently working on something related to Discord or whatever. You don't need this. You don't need to understand this, okay? So that's just a tip for you. Don't understand everything in the code to do a task. Okay, that was for the general helpers and why it's used. Again, this file, let me, instead of horizontally scrolling, let me toggle on the word wrap. This file aims to provide general miscellaneous utility functions that can be used across the code base. Okay, the prompt manager, I think I explained it before. I think it, the file aims to provide, one second, prompt related functions that can be used across the code base. Again, similar to the general helpers, but for prompting. Specifically, it loads prompt from resources, as I mentioned before, and manages them for the Ansari agent. That's a prompt class, and it defines the render method and all of that, and the prompt manager. All of these are just wrappers for us instead of us saying in the Ansari code itself, hey, just with open statement, open this text file and read the content and let's go. No, instead of doing it like that, we wrap it around these classes just to see if we want to do extra logic. And the with open, you can see it here. Okay, so it's basically just wrapping, and so that in that wrapping we can add any additional logic that we want. Okay, so you can see it. You can see, for example, prompt or prompt manager is called in the Ansari related files. So, for example, here the prompt manager PM is just a wrapper again to get the system prompt file name in the system message that will be inserted at the top of the message history if you remember that logic. Okay, in where is it? Yeah, in this part. Okay. So yeah, you can just trace the code and figure it out where each prompt is exactly used. And yeah, that was the logic of the utilities. Utilities consists only of these two files for now. So we're good to go. I believe what is remaining for me is the Ansari database. And yeah, so you'll see you then.